Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am Kasia Avery, and this is Iris Fritschi-Cussens, and I am super happy and excited to have this chat with her today about everything. We're going to chat about everything, right?
Yes.
Yes, good. There are probably some subjects that we'll try to not get too much into, but hello, welcome, Iris. I am really happy to see you here. We've been working on Wanderlust several times together. And I always wanted to do it. I always wanted to see your face, give you that virtual hug right now.
Yeah, it's so good to talk to you.
It's really fun. And tell us, you don't have to tell me, but tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, where you live, what do you do, who you live with.
Yeah, so I'm Iris. I live in London in the UK. I'm originally from Holland. I'm actually Dutch. And I live here with my husband, my 2 kids, and my cat, and some fish as well.
Some fish.
Yeah, some fish. And I'm a mixed media artist, an art journaler. I make art for self-discovery, self-expression. So that means that my art is always mostly about the process, not so much about the result. And I also teach and vlog online so that I can kind of share my approach and my art with people who also want to be creative or want to be inspired.
Brilliant, fabulous. And what you see behind Iris, people, this is her signature style. You see these faces and that rawness and the very, it's so full of character and depth. And I really, really love that about your style. So what a joy to be able to chat with you. So you're a teacher, you teach people, you show people how to do stuff. And I know that this is, I think, right at the beginning of this Wanderlust Live weekend. This is a good subject to chat about, to give those who are listening and viewing this a little bit extra confidence when it comes to learning and following tutorials, because we often worry that maybe we shouldn't copy our teacher's work. So is it, in your opinion, okay to copy? What's the best practice here? What do you think?
So I think there's 2 things to say about that. First of all, it's like when you are doing a course like this, especially a course like Wanderlust, I think copying is actively encouraged. It's like that's what the teachers are here for. We're here to show you how you can do things and then for you to gain that confidence by copying. And then hopefully, like as a teacher, it's always also my wish that you go your own way, that you like start listening to those little voices of like, oh, I want to do it this way. And then for you to feel like, yes, that's absolutely allowed as well. But I think that it's just really important to explicitly say that, yes, if you want to copy, if that's how you want to learn, then that is exactly what you should be doing, because you're going to learn so much. And then the second thing is I always find it really helpful to know that copying is historically also, like not just in 2022, it's historically what people would do. People would copy the masters. They would create studies. It's called a study, where you copy someone's existing work and then you just really try to recreate it because you will learn so much. And also that is exactly how people in the olden days and now are expected to learn. And obviously you would say, this is a study, this is the original work that I made the study of, so that we know that you're not trying to pass it off as your original work. But the copying in and of itself is absolutely a super valid learning tool.
Absolutely, I agree. And I also want to add, it's fun, isn't it? Because you can kind of switch off the decision making, right? You can just follow the teacher and do as they say. I love
it's very comforting. It's really comforting, especially like in the beginning when you might feel like, gosh, I don't have any ideas or I have too many ideas. And both of those things can leave you not creating. So having something to follow and to copy is just super comforting.
So yes, to copy is totally fine and it's okay. This is how we learn. But sometimes, it's in our journal. So we wanted to feel a little bit more personal, a little bit more unique. And some people out there will be a little bit more experienced. So there are ways in which we can make a project that happened before because of a tutorial a little bit more personal. What would you say students can do to get that more personal feel?
Okay. So I personally like to listen to the little whispers inside my mind. So I might be watching a tutorial, and then in my brain, goes like, oh, I want to use this supply. Oh, but it's the teacher's not showing me this, or I want to make this kind of mark on the page. Oh, the teacher's not doing. And then instead of talking yourself out of it, talk yourself into it. So I will do, like, I've learned to listen to whatever my brain says. So if my brain has the impulse, then rather
That's
than
risky,
like,
Iris.
it is, I agree, but it always works out. Like it never doesn't work out, for me at least. And I think that's not because it doesn't work out in the result, it's because it feels right emotionally. Like when you're going with your impulses, and it's only paint and paper, you kind of feel a feeling of like you've honored yourself and your secret, like inner whispers or something, and then it feels like it's yours, and it feels like part of your process. So always listen to those little whispers of like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. Even if it feels weird, even if it feels like, no, that color wouldn't go, or you're not supposed to mix oil and water. I don't care, like just do it. So I like doing that. And then for me, I would watch videos without creating alongside, just watch it for inspiration and then go and do your thing. You can do this if you're a beginner, but I can understand that might feel a little bit intimidating. But definitely if you feel like you've got more of your own process already, you've got more of your own style already, then doing that will give you lots of inspiration, and that you can take it and bring it into your own work.
But sometimes you may not feel as creative, or whispers in your brain may not be as loud as Iris's whispers. Then a good idea would be to just change the color palette, right? Or add your own brush mark, or change the mark making tool. So if the teacher's using, I don't know, a pencil, maybe you want to use a marker, and you're going to get a different, bolder look. So just changing one supply, changing the color palette, or even changing the composition can also be helpful. But I love what you said about, listening to those whispers, intuition, right? Following what feels right on your spread is great. I think one of the things about intuitive or journaling is to me personally, is to react to what's happening on the page rather than plan it. And, so if you're following a tutorial, at some point, like midway through the video, you may feel that I want to pause this video and just, do my own thing. And that's fine, right? There's no right or wrong. We agree on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we got the same approach there. Yes,
absolutely. Do you have any kind of tips, tricks, techniques, or ways in which you can get out of that creative block?
Okay. I always have it's like a two-pronged approach, because I think that there are certain practical things that you can do to get started when you are having that blank page and you're like just a bit overwhelmed. So following a lesson, following a tutorial, or following like a guidance of warm-up techniques, that kind of stuff, that can really get you going. It can get you from that place of like, gosh, I have no ideas, to, hey, I'm actually actively making something. And even though 5 minutes ago I felt like I had no ideas, now something is happening. And I really feel like that there's practical things that we can do in order to get into that zone. And for me, a favorite way is to like watch some videos, or not just watch them, but actually actively do something alongside a video, because it really creates that feeling. And then the second thing is that I always, for me, it's really important to acknowledge where the block is coming from. Like when I am at my desk and I don't know what to do, or I'm feeling badly, or I'm intimidated by the blank page, most often it's fear. It's fear that's holding me back. It's fear that's protecting me, because if I don't create, then I can't be disappointed. I can't be comparing myself. It's once you do something, once you step out into doing and creating, is really vulnerable. And kind of starting to think about those things, starting to acknowledge those things, like the fear and the vulnerability, the way that you might be trying to protect yourself by not creating. I find it really helpful to kind of engage with those emotional aspects so that they're kind of out in the open, and like I don't have to be like, I don't understand why I'm not creating, even though I've got all these nice art supplies or these good videos or whatever. So I find that really helpful.
And I think it's important to point out here that you just mentioned that you sometimes watch videos to get your creativity going. And you're a teacher, right? You teach other people, but you still reach out for resources from other artists. So that's really brilliant. So I just want to, point it out. People who watch this, you maybe feel like your experience, but it's really beneficial to see other people's process and,
Absolutely.
have that kind of student mindset. That we're all here to learn and experience, and all of this is to help our own creativity. You mentioned also fears, and obviously only the person who doesn't do anything doesn't get criticized or doesn't, it's really hard sometimes to share our art online because it's a very vulnerable part of us that we're showing. We are often expressing emotions and feelings in our art, right? Like you definitely do. So showing this in public is like a big deal. So how do you feel about this? Is it easy for you to share on social media? Do you like it or do you avoid it?
I love sharing my work. And I think that because my work is so raw and expressive and not necessarily, it doesn't have the goal of being pretty. I think that's helped me to share things more freely. I think that when I first started, and I was very like, I love kind of aesthetics. I love things that are beautiful, that are symmetrical, that are smooth, I love those things. But I found myself that when I was creating those types of things, then I would get really scared about criticism. Like, oh, I haven't done it perfectly enough. It really triggered my inner perfectionist when I was working like that. So working in a more kind of intuitive, raw way where the objective isn't to make something fixed and isn't to make something pretty, it's really helped me to feel confident to share it. And I kind of feel like the more individual my art becomes, the easier it is to share it, because it feels like, well, it can't really be compared to anybody else's work anyway. So that helps.
Yeah. And I think also what you just said is you basically making up your mind about what you think about this artwork before you post. You already know this is yours and it cannot be compared. It's got that, raw and expressive vibe. So it is not comparable.
Yeah.
Even if it's judged, it doesn't really.
Yeah. And I think that when you're looking at my work, obviously I've been doing it for a long time. So you might think like, oh, well, that's because you've been doing it for years and you've developed your style. But I think what the crux of it isn't my style or that I've been doing it for a long time. I think it's that I'm showing up when I paint or art journal. I'm showing up authentically and expressing the things that I want to express. And when you do that, whether you're a beginner or whether you've been doing it for a long time, you have a claim over that work that you've done. And then it becomes easier to share and less kind of less vulnerable to what other people might think. Not to say it's easy, but yeah.
No, but that's brilliant. I really like that. I have to say here that I was going through a kind of a social media sharing blog a few years ago, and creative blog, massive, big blog, very solid, very hard. And I managed to soften it with doing ugly art, doing very careless stuff, painting without really worrying about the end result, not trying to make pretty stuff, the opposite. Let's make it.
And yet it becomes so attractive. Like because I know the type of art that you're talking about. And like when I see that, I'm like, that you've let go, but that doesn't mean that what you're then sharing is like off-putting to other people. It's actually more attractive. It's like when you meet a person who is just very much themselves rather than like a fake
when you
veneer.
See that, when you see that edge to them, absolutely.
It's more attractive.
That's good. Absolutely. Really good. So that was that doing this kind of ugly art helped my creative blog, but then social media blog, because I was posting nice stuff and I was getting lots of likes, and you kind of get into that, oh, I have to really match that next time. It needs to get good likes. I mean, this is stupid. It doesn't have to get likes, right? But you get into that sometimes. So I decided I'm just gonna post those pages, on my blog, take a picture of those, like the worst stuff from that messy art journal, and just gonna post them in a massive long post. And that just helped me massively. There were some comments. I mean, people liked it, were encouraging likes, but this is when I realized I really don't care about whether it's going to get lots of applause or not. Exactly what you said. I made up my mind about it before I posted. So that's a good tip, people. Make up your mind about your work before you post. You decide whether this is good or not, right? Oh, wow, what a good thought, Iris. So how did you get into mixed media?
Oh wow, it was a while ago now, actually, but I remember when I first I started with journal writing, actually, and then on was it Live Journal, like a blogging website, I joined some groups who did kind of visual diary keeping, so people who would decorate their pages with some paint around the outside, but it was still mostly about like writing in your diary type of thing. But then kind of some people in that group were posting other things, like, drawings or painting, but inside this kind of journal or inside a diary. And also around that time, I remember it was Tamara Port and Susie Blue. This was in the very early days of YouTube, so there wasn't as much on YouTube as there is now, and they were making these kind of vlog art videos, and they made me feel so inspired, and they made me feel like, oh, I can do that too. So then I started kind of like making kind of whimsical figures in my art journals. I mean, I then became an art journaler, I guess. And I got really enthusiastic about doing pretty faces and stuff like that. And it took me a while to obviously like end up where I am now, but that was the genesis of it. It was just seeing people doing these things that made me think like, wow, I want to do that too.
Oh, that's great. So maybe some of you who are watching, this will be the beginning of your path, watching some of our lives and the videos from our teachers, and hopefully soon you'll join our classroom and see Iris's lesson, because her lessons are amazing, and it's a fact.
I really hope that when people watch my lessons, that makes them more creative, or makes them feel more like, hey, I can do this, or I want to do this, or this is giving me an idea of how to express more like myself. That's what I would like most.
Cool. So I know you love teaching, because it's very obvious on your videos. Which part of your creative life you love the most? Is it teaching or making videos, creating your own art journals? Which is your base, your starting point?
It's really interesting, because I often see other people being artists and then they start teaching, or then they start making videos about what they do. But I think for me, it's much more intertwined. It's like I make videos because I make art, but I also make art because I make videos. And I make art and I teach, but I teach and then I make art. It's like it's really
hold on. I need to write it down.
It's really intertwined is what I'm saying. It's not like I feel like I'm not just like being an artist in my studio and then I decided to turn on the camera and then I decided to teach. Right. It was actually much more like, I actually think that I learn through explaining things to other people. So often I will be working on something and then I start teaching it before I've even quite understood it myself. But through teaching it, actually like stuff starts making sense. Through talking it through, stuff starts making sense. So it's like it's a real dialogue between my creativity and then my teaching, or my creativity and my video making. And I don't know, sometimes I get self-critical about it, but then I'm also like, no, this is just what works for me. So yeah. Sorry, I didn't answer your question about like whether I have like
no. Do you
my favorite thing is?
No, you answered the question beautifully, and I think what you said is what I can see in your lessons. They are really well structured. It's all all together. You know, you're not just showing the project how to do this specific project. You are actually teaching lots and lots of things during the whole process. So I think that's, you know, that's really great for the students.
I'm always teaching what I need most myself, really. So like that's what what inspires it.
Okay, well, that's a good one. Maybe that's also why your videos seem so personal and real. And real. Lost it.
It happens, I know.
I had a question, but I've lost it. What time is it? How long have we been? Oh, nobody knows. 20 minutes or something?
About 20 minutes, yeah.
Let me just have a look at my notes. Maybe there will be some help there. Anything else you think would be good to chat about here?
I don't know, maybe something about, like, you know how when you're a beginner and you watch videos and you think you need to buy all the art supplies, that kind of
supplies
stuff. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, I've seen you put on there that you're going to be doing a live with limited supplies, yeah, on Sunday.
Yeah.
So we could put that mention that as well. Okay. Okay. So we chatted about a few things, and we started off with, I think, how to, you know, follow the tutorials. But I think one more thing that may be worrying people before they start a big course like Wanderlust or joining an event like this one is the thought that they have to buy lots of supplies. And I mean, when you're just an acrylic artist or a watercolor artist, there's just a set of watercolors you need and some good paintbrushes and you're good to go. With mixed media, you go to any online shop and it's just quite overwhelming. So what are your thoughts on that?
I love art supplies. Like, I want to come out and say, I love art supplies. I love going art supply shopping. I love buying all the things. I also love, I don't know, encouraging people to use what they have, because I think a lot of people, even when you're just starting out, you probably already have quite a lot of things that you can use. And I know that when you watch videos and when you watch tutorials, and especially when they're a tutorial that teaches you how to make a specific project, and then there's like this specific stencil that you need, or this specific pencil, I don't know, then you feel like, oh, I need that in order to make good art. Like, if I want to be make as something as pretty or as beautiful as the teacher, then I need to have all of these things. And to a certain extent, it's nice to have all the things, but I really, you know, I wouldn't want people to feel like they have to like bankrupt themselves getting the specific supplies, when really the creativity is inside you. Absolutely. You know, the expression, the kind of the goal of showing up at your art desk and creating something is the time spent with yourself and your supplies and the thing that you end up doing. And having that, personally, whenever I have bought things that I felt like I really need that, and then I will be able to make the art, I've always been disappointed. So it's been developing my own relationship with my supplies that has allowed me to make the art that I want to make, and that's going to be different for everyone. So yeah, having a range of supplies is fun, and it makes it much more easy to do mixed media art, but it's not ever going to be the one supply that is the kind of the golden ticket. It's absolutely, you know, it's just a small range, and then you can play.
Absolutely. And I also want to add to this that, first of all, we can substitute a lot of supplies used in specific mixed media lessons. So for instance, if a teacher is using watercolor pencil, you can use just a plain pencil, your kid's crayon, or watercolor paint. Yeah, sorry. My little thing popped up that we only have 10 minutes. Okay. Only 10 minutes.
And I also... I just it reminds me of, I just recently made some art with my kids' art supplies, or like student grade art supplies. And I remember when I first started, everybody was using golden paints, and golden paints are very, very expensive. I have some, I love them, but even now, like 10 years later, it's not like I'm only using those. Like I'll use whatever aids my expression. And when I was making art with my kids' art supplies, the art and the expression is just as valid. It looks just as good. Nobody would ever know whether I used like Liquitex Basics, which is like a cheaper brand, or Golden Artist acrylics. You wouldn't know. And I really like that, because, you know, like, sure, buy some of the expensive ones if you can afford it, if it makes you feel good, but don't feel like you need it, because you don't. So,
and if
yeah,
you are a beginner, I feel like if you have supplies that are less expensive, you're going to be more courageous with them. You're not going to be as precious about that little bit of paint that you're going to squeeze out of that tube that was, I don't know, 20 pounds or something.
Yeah, because you'll feel so anxious. It's like, oh gosh, is the art I'm gonna make gonna be worth that like nice thing? And you know, I sometimes make art on printer paper so that I can get over my feeling of like, oh, I spent this much money on these nice art supplies. No, just like cereal boxes, you know, like it really helps me.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. One of my favorite things to do for my daily art journaling is to use really cheap books, you know, from like a stationery shop, which are, I don't know, £2.50, £3. The paper's really thin and it rips, but it doesn't matter because I can, you know, like you say, get over that block and really, really creative and have fun. But having said all that, if you don't have many supplies and you would like to try, feel free to ask us questions in the comments, in the classroom. For substitutes, we are really, really happy to help. There is Amy in the classroom who will always, you know, work it out for you. And there's a lot that can be substituted. And like Iris said, you don't have to have certain supplies to get a very, very similar result. Well, thank you very much, Iris. It was so great to chat to you. Thank you very much for giving us your time and sharing your super wisdom and your super tips. And we will see Iris again on Wanderlust Live Weekend. There will be especially one live stream with Iris where you are going to be working with a limited supply kit, right? Is that's
right?
Good?
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting.
Oh, cool. I can't wait. Well, thank you very much. And thank you everyone who listened to it, watched it, and we're really hoping you're going to have a great time on our live weekend.
Awesome.
Thank you. I'm going to stop this.